All right, everyone. I am live and I am waiting on my guest. So I'm waiting on my guest. So just wait for a few minutes here. Let me send Artisan an email and see if he still intends on coming up tonight. Hey, Toya, let me see if I can find my guest. Okay. Hey, Toya, thank you for your support earlier on the Dune live stream over on my entertainment and media channel. We had a lot of fun this morning doing that one, and I appreciate your kind words about me and Kareen. Let's see if he sends an email. I think he's on Pacific time. Hey, Gigami, how you doing? Well, first of all, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. As a federal civilian employee myself, I had the day off. Days off are always good. And this is the third part of a triple header. I did a stream on my sports channel earlier. I also did a stream on um, my entertainment and media channel. Me and Kareem talked about the Dune movie. And this is supposed to be the third stream tonight. I don't see anything over on my Gmail. No one is backstage yet. So, yeah, otherwise, I got to the gym today and hit the bag a little bit. Went by Trader Joe's and got some more something I was running out of. And here we are. How are your days going? All right. Let's see. Let me check my Gmail again. No, don't see anything over there. I hope he's okay. I don't see anyone backstage. Giagami says, have been listening to Roger. You know what? I heard a little bit of what Roger was talking about today. They were talking about Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. Apparently, Scottie Pippen feels some kind of way, and I think he's releasing a book or something like that because he doesn't feel like he's gotten his respect. And they were talking about that. So I hopped on and then I did my stream on my sports channel. And then I came back afterwards and I had to hop off because I had a phone call. And then Rael was going on about he was going hard for LeBron. It switched from Michael Jordan and Scotty to LeBron. I think I made the comment that LeBron, if the rules were changed and if physical play was still allowed, I wondered if LeBron would still be the player that he is today. So, and Rael was So Rael was going on and on. Rael was going on and on and on behalf of LeBron, which is what Rael does. So let me check my Gmail again. Nope, nothing there. I'll wait about another 10 to 15 minutes. And if Artisan doesn't show up, well, I will shut this down and go listen to Angry Man talk about Kyle Rittenhouse. I think apparently Kyle Rittenhouse is on trial for the Wisconsin shooting. And that's going to be a big thing. My guest is here. Okay. All right. So, guys, my guest is here. So I'm going to play this intro, and then I'm going to we'll jump in on the other side. So I'll see you guys on the other side. I just put this intro together. Well, let me know what you think. I'm trying to increase the production value here, and I realized that StreamYard has a video feature, so I've gotten a little creative. So I'll see you guys on the other side of this intro. All right, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and this is Big Discussion 76, my original channel. So I just threw that introduction together probably within the last hour. Like I said, I'm trying to increase the production components. In the past, for the live streams, I just showed the still images of my logo and my channel and my credentials slide. But as you go on, you got to, raise your game. And that song, well, the song is actually in the description box. There's free music on YouTube that you can use without getting a copyright strike as long as you give the attribution. And I found that track. I think it's called Jazz Addicts. It repeats. I don't know if you guys are used to music like that, but I like dance music and digital music. I like all kinds of music. So I thought that one was in my mind, and I thought that would make a nice introduction for tonight's show. So, all right, guys, with that, let's see. We're at 10 minutes. It's just after 8:30 here on the East Coast. If I do these on weeknights, I usually start at 7:30, but I think Artisan is out on the West Coast, so you have to adjust for the time zones. So he's there. So I'm going to bring Artisan up. We talked about doing this a couple of months ago. I think I it was my collaboration with Charles when we talked about the Gray Faulkner initiative and how we've kind of lost respect for the blue collar trades. And at that point, I think someone mentioned Artisan as a carpenter. And I said, okay, well, BGS, can you get me in contact with Artisan? And I got in contact with Artisan. And, sometimes these things take months based upon schedules. So we're here. So I'm going to bring Artisan up and we're going to talk about his trade and his knowledge set and how he acquired his knowledge set. And well, give me I'm going to bring Artisan up in 2 minutes. So if you've been hanging out in the sphere, you know that your professional training. I'm thinking a little bit about the image guy right now. You guys know who the image guy is. It seems that there's a bit of a divide between being white collar and being blue collar. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll show you the two writings I put underneath this particular stream. So I thought that there were two writings from my blogging platform that I thought were applicable and really, really fed into the stream really, really well. The first one is my Father's Day 2018 blog post. And this one is called Father's Day 2018, Dad's Doctor and His Lawyer. And the reason I wrote this is because I recalled that my father and my mother actually, they really pushed us towards white collar education. So in my home, there was really no discussion regarding being trained in one of the blue collar trades. That wasn't a discussion. It was go to college, go to college, go to college. That's what you should do. And I think that I know for my father, at least, based upon some of his reaction to me getting my PhD, I think that what he saw was a high income, but also the prestige of being a white collar professional. So that's what this post is about. That's in the description box below. And there are caveats and there are pluses and minuses to being a white collar professional. It's not a golden bullet. I think that's the word. A silver bullet's used to kill a werewolf. So I don't think it's a golden bullet or a golden parachute, especially if you come out owing large amounts of debt. So the second piece that I put under there is from my blogging platform. It's from my customer. Let me put it into Google Chrome. Bear with me for 1 second here. Yeah, so this post is called Launching a Construction Business, Key Factors to Take into Account. It's a very, very short piece. It's a short read, but I think the significance of it in regards to what me and Artisan are going to talk about tonight is I think it's important for young people if you pursue, well, you should always be thinking about how to go into business for yourself and how to create your own enterprise. But I think that an individual who gets trained in the blue collar trades, if they have the business training to go with it, they stand to make a lot of money. So I think people just look at the fact that, uh, you know, John might be a plumber or an electrician, um, a bricklayer, whatever, and those kinds of things. But those are valuable skill sets. Those people kept working during the pandemic while other people got sent home. So that's very, very significant. So it's important to always think about the business training as well. Artisan, let me know whenever you're ready. I saw you leave and come back. You good? I see him moving around. Type something in the private chat. Let me know if you're ready. All right. So I'm going to take this away, and then I'm going to bring Artisan up. Artisan MC, how you doing?
All right. How you doing, Dr. Goodbar?
Good. Good. Hey, we were talking about you earlier over on, it turns out you're also a comic book media guy yourself. So me and Kareen, we did a review of the Dune movie.
Oh,
And
really?
she was talking about how, yeah, you guys over in your space, you guys talk about those things all the time.
Yeah. My channel, I talk about Dune pretty heavily because I've read, I think, about half of the books and really got into it thanks to BGS and Grinch God for tipping me to some of the other books. I really got into it last year, read through a lot of it, and then when the movie came out, I was really trying to pump people to go back, read the original material, and then have a view on the movie that wasn't totally based on just somebody else's review of what the material was, but their own review of what it was, which is something I usually, tend to do. I want people to actually think for themselves and figure out what they like, what they don't like, based on the fact that they actually have some experience with the material and not just somebody else's interpretation of the material. So I review media, primarily movies and geek topics and movies and stuff like that, and then put my own spin on it, on what I think about it, but try to impel people, or to go forth and look at it themselves and have their own view of what they see and what they enjoy about it.
Okay.
So,
well, I'll have to sub you over on my entertainment channel, and perhaps we can link up sometime. Okay. But tonight we're going to talk about carpentry.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you saw the questions that I put together. I think we'll go for about an hour.
Okay.
So
tell you, I am on call tonight, so I will go as long as I can. But if my phone rings, my work phone rings, and I have to get out of here, I have to get out of here immediately, or at least take the call to find out if it's an actual emergency or not. But yeah, if we can do an hour, that would be cool. And I did just see the questions when I was on my way home because I was tied up with work today, so I'm looking at them right now. And I can answer these pretty quickly. Okay. So it's all you. Sure.
So first of all, I asked Professor Black Ops this over on my science channel because you have a unique name. Is that Artisan? Is that relating to your entertainment stuff, or is that related to your skill with the carpentry?
That is related to skill with carpentry and art. Artisan was something that I settled on because being a Gen Xer, you always had your rap name or something like that, right? Always had a moniker that kind of fits you. And once I actually got into the trades of carpentry, I had already been, an artist, crafts person. I always did arts and crafts and stuff like that in use of my hands. And once I became an actual journeyman carpenter, I thought the name actually fit for being somebody who was a skilled tradesman at a lot of different crafts, right? So I thought Artisan fit. MC was just a play on my own name, my own actual government name, and the fact that I did like rap back in the day. So I thought it kind of fit. So when I started my YouTube account, I needed a name for it, and I settled on that one. It's just okay. It's Artisan MC, so it kind of works for me. When I look at it, I just see my name.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like you're out on the West Coast. What initially drew you into the blue collar trades?
Blue collar trades initially I can credit it back as early as my cousin on my brother's side of the family,
Mm-hmm.
which was Dan. And I grew up for a time with Dan and his family, four boys, two girls, in a house in Richmond. And Dan was a Marine and a carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
So for the time that I stayed there, went to private school with his family because they worked at the school, I got really exposed a lot to working in the garage with power tools and building stuff out of wood because that's what all the boys did on the weekends. We would, you know, craft things and learn how to draw floor plans and stuff like that just as children. It was just something that we did for fun, you know, playing with our little army men and stuff like that. And the little guns and swords and stuff like that we would make in the garage. We would take out in the backyard and actually play with, you know. So when we built forts, it was something a little bit different going on in forts because you're thinking about structural elements and stuff like that, as opposed to just, no, we just need a couple of pieces of wood to throw together. So that kind of got into me. And it was something I gravitated to very naturally because I like looking at something that was seemingly, you know, nondescript and seeing life or seeing what I could actually turn it into as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to just what it was. So as a kid, it started with empty milk cartons, an empty shoebox, you know, this, that, and the other that looked pretty interesting. And I would figure out how to turn it into something else for me to use with my toys and whatnot. Because once I moved back with my mother, she didn't have a lot of money. She was young, raising, you know, two boys. So there wasn't a lot of money to go to the store and buy a bunch of toys. So you had to be creative in making, you know, your toys or making your imagination, you know, fuel what you could have to play with. So it was natural. So that getting exposed to that side of the family who were a lot of carpenters, their father was a carpenter. He got his sons into carpentry. Um, got me into when I got older, as in my teenage years, actually helping them on jobs that they were doing. The person who actually got me into the trade, which was Ron Hamilton, a friend of my mother's who had known me before I was born, conceived, literally, would have me help him on projects that he would do in his backyard. And he was a journeyman carpenter and moved up to being a superintendent carpenter. And he would always have me helping him build stuff in his backyard, decks or pads or some other stuff. And seeing that I had that kind of acumen for it, and I didn't have a problem doing it. And when I got up to about the age of my 19 going on 20, I was having my first child. My mother's urging pushed me to ask him about a job because he's a superintendent on a construction site. And he said, sure, put me to work on a construction site that he was running. And from then on, from like 2021 on, I was a carpenter. That's what I was doing. I was an apprentice carpenter, learning this trade, doing things that I've already been doing pretty much my whole life. But now there was a context for how this actually works in the real world. And I was then working with another cousin who was initially the cousin that I was raised with, his family, Dan. This was his older brother. And I'm working with him out in the field, you know, doing carpentry because that's what we did. So that pretty much pulled me into that blue collar trade.
Okay. So first of all, thank you to the Roger Report for sharing this stream.
Shout
That's
out to
always
Roger.
that's much appreciated. Everyone, the super chat is live. If you want to make a donation to the channel, I just put my Cash App and PayPal there. So, Artisan, for the layperson, for the person unfamiliar with that world, can you describe just briefly what exactly a carpenter does? What aspects of? Yeah, go ahead.
That's right. Okay, so to put it simply, you're sitting in a building right now Everybody in the chat is sitting in the building, and it's composed of 4 walls with drywall, wood studs behind that, insulation, exterior finish, and all that. Carpenter simply is the master craft that all that comes from, of a person being able to stand out on an empty plot of land and build your entire house. Now, back in historical times, this was done by, say, cowboys or early settlers. This is what they did. They would build their own houses, and most people, most men would have these skills to do this stuff, and some specialized in one form or another. But primarily, they were all carpenters. If you want to take it biblical, since I see AB is in there, Jesus was a carpenter because Joseph was a carpenter. You build, you learn how to build and put things together. So in a modern sense, your house is built of 4 walls, maybe more, and is composed of wood and drywall. A carpenter is the person that comes, sets your foundation, builds your walls, sheets your walls, puts in your flooring, puts in your ceiling, puts in your roof, puts the shingles on your roof, puts the doors on your house, puts the windows in your house. Now, in the modern sense, all those trades have since broken up and become specialized trades all to themselves. You have glazers for the windows, and roofers for just doing the roofing, and drywallers just to do the drywall and all that stuff, plumbers to do the plumbing part. But initially, all that was a carpenter. A carpenter can do all of that. A carpenter does not necessarily specialize in just doing one part of the building process. They can do it all, and was hence my training in being a carpenter, was learning that whole process from mud to roof line, finishing off a home. So while I did not specialize in just one thing, which meant I would turn away from learning all the rest of the stuff, I learned it all, from blueprints to everything. So that is what a carpenter is. A carpenter is the master craft. Now, when you say carpenter, to most people, they think carpet.
Yes.
Maybe it's just the way I say it, but that's what they think. They think, oh, you lay carpet. I'm like, no, I build the house that carpet goes in. But if called upon, I can lay the carpet too. Okay. I just choose not to. I don't like working on my knees that long nowadays.
Okay. Well, I just learned something there. Let's see. So in terms of your training, I heard you mention that you were an apprentice to someone. Did you go to school for any of this, or to get certified? And describe your training.
Okay, so my training as a carpenter's apprentice in California, West Coast, Bay Area, nine Bay counties, is 4 years of apprenticeship training, and I believe it's like 5,000 or 1,400 hours of on-the-job training. Mm-hmm. You're on the job training, you're supposed to at least move around to learn every phase of doing this construction work and how to do it, and learning from a journeyman that you're working with on the job that you are. Now, how it works, at least in California, in the Bay Area, you join a particular union. I'm out of local 22, San Francisco union, right? You join that union. That union then makes you an apprentice. You can get a job with any of the general contractors that contract work out of that union hall dealing in that area. Thankfully, California Bay Area is pretty pro-union. So there's a lot of contractors that actually use the union halls and stuff like that. So you can work, the time I got in, it was a little bit of a hustle where you would actually have to go from job to job, but they actually has since changed that, where they don't want you going from job to job. They specifically want people pulling out of the union hall. So your name's on the list in the union hall. You get called up on a job. Say if the job is down on First Street, they need 2 journeymen and 3 apprentices, because the union sets up certain laws of how many apprentices you need for so many journeyman carpenters. You get the call, your name is on the list, you're up, you go out to that job site. Now you are on a job site as an apprentice carpenter hopefully with your tools. Usually the person who gets you into the trade will help you get your tools. I've found out since that this is not the case for most people. So thankfully, I got in with a crew of brothers, which was black men who worked in this trade, and that's what they did for each other. They would help you get your tools to start you off on a good foot to help you get to work so you can start working in this trade. Because at the time that they started, Caucasian people didn't really want to teach them anything. They would have them out there just using them to do the heavy work and would not teach them any of the skills. So, as a sense to correct that, any young brother that they brought in, they would actually help him get his tools, tell him what he needed, and have him on a job with them so he could learn more of this craft and not just be relegated to, packing lumber the whole day and learning nothing for years. So, as an apprentice, your job is to assist a journeyman, pack lumber, and at least in an 8-hour day, 4 of those hours you can be used to pack lumber, move material, or set up for the next phase of the job, stripping walls or whatever. But the other 4 that you need to be learning your craft. So basically, you're getting used as both. You're getting used as a laborer and a carpenter. So working with a journeyman, you will be instructed, and you may work with a few different journeymen on a job because you're basically there to assist all of them, right? Usually it's 1, but it might be 2 at the most, right? And you will pick up how they do the job and what they are doing on that job and what the job is. So it's on you to ask questions. It's questions about what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and learn the why of things, and not just this is the way we do things. Okay. And for me, it's a benefit because I do ask a lot of questions when I'm curious and I pay a lot of attention. Right. So you will do that for 3 months at a time, and then you will go away for a week to school. And school it's not at least in the 9 counties, it's not a BS thing. There's an actual building in Pleasanton, Joint Apprenticeship Training Center, and you will go there with other apprentices pulled from other jobs within that union area to that training center to get trained by other journeymen who are more skilled but have an acumen for teaching, to teach you all these different phases of construction and teach you your craft. First class that you have is Apprentice in the Trade, where it teaches you the history of carpentry, which is a really good book that I still haven't been able to find yet, but it teaches you the history of carpentry, where it came from, what your role is in all of that, which is a really awesome book because it's a history lesson. And then it starts teaching you from the bare bones sense how to do some of this work, the most common practices in doing this work, on top of the big Bible of a book that you'll have forever, like this thick, of just carpentry. It has everything in it, and you'll be tested that week. You'll go for 8 hours a day, 5 days out the week, getting that apprenticeship training. You will get graded. It's like a regular college course, right? At the end of that week, you will have your final, and you will either get some passing or failing grades, and then you will go back out onto your job site and go back to work doing whatever it is that you're doing, but with this new knowledge in hand that you can start implementing to understand what you're doing. Hopefully that wasn't too long-winded.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. Because a lot of people don't know what all is entailed in being a carpenter. So a couple of things. So Artisan, when you watch, I know you talked about building a new structure. When you watch Flip This House or any of those shows on, Love It or List It, Joanna and the gangs, are those teams that they bring in, are those carpenters?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So traditionally, what you'll see in modern construction, you will see a lot of teams come in. If you watch any of these DIY shows, building shows, and stuff like that, put it this way: in terms of television, they are carpenters. if you watch them work and you've worked in the trade and understand how you work in the trade, you'll be able to pick out that some of these people are not carpenters.
Okay.
If they are, they're just East Coast carpenters and they do things a little differently. But primarily, they're all carpenters. So the people coming in, knocking out the walls and stuff like that, they may be laborers or whatever. But the people who are actually, you see, cutting the material, building the material, figuring out how to put this stuff together, reading the blueprints, and converting those fractions, numbers, lines, diagrams, and all that stuff to actual tangible wooden objects in a house are carpenters. It's usually carpenters. Now, you may get special trades in there at times where they'll have plumbers come in and do the plumbing work. They'll have the electrician come in and do the electrical work. They'll have drywallers come in and throw the drywall. They'll have painters come in and paint. All that spawned from being a carpenter. All of that spawned from being a carpenter.
Okay.
So they're just broken up in a sense now, because it's easier to do it with many people than just one person.
Okay, I want to thank Giagami for the $5 super chat. So I want to make the most efficient use of the time here, because you might have to run away at some point. In terms of the training, is it similar to white collar training where you have to go and take out a loan for it or get some kind of grant for it, or how does that work?
Okay, the carpentry training, you don't. You pretty much pay because it's backed by the union. The union has a vested interest in having the most trained and skilled people out in the field, right? So you join the union, so you're paying your union dues. Even as an apprentice, you're paying your union dues. And as you pay your union dues and go through your apprenticeship, you gradually come up to the journeyman scale, which in California right now, I think the journeyman scale is almost $40 an hour, right? But an apprentice starting today would make maybe 20 something bucks, right? And over his 4-year times, he will get scaled up to reach that journeyman rate, whatever it is. But it's also on the completion of so many of their classes, passing those classes, and doing so many hours in the field working. So you're constantly paying your union dues every month. And those union dues from all the members actually goes into the training center to get more trained and skilled journeymen to come out of that program, so they can actually command that salary. When you say, oh, he's getting paid $60 an hour. Yeah, but he has all the training to warrant the $60 an hour. He's not somebody you just picked up from Home Depot and wants $60 an hour. And he may or may not know what he's supposed to. So there is something that you pay in that part, but it's not huge. You do. I did leave out the part that as an apprentice, trying to get into the apprenticeship program, you do have to be tested. There is a test.
Okay.
Right off the bat to get your basic knowledge to see if you can actually do it. Unfortunately for carpenters, it's a pretty easy test. It's a lot of math, but math can be a stumbling block for some people, fractions and stuff like that. So,
okay. So it sounds like you guys don't go in and take out $50,000 loans to get your training. Okay. No. I think that's important. And number two, which you mentioned math, you mentioned fractions. So a carpenter has to understand how to calculate numbers.
Yes, fractions and decimals. If you get into what I was doing, which was I end up being the layout guy, which is the guy who reads the blueprint and lays out the work for everyone else to work off of, because blueprints were easy for me and math was easy for me. And how my mind works, I'm very visual. So I can see this drawing on paper, put it together in my head, and visualize how it's supposed to be in the real world. But then I had the mathematical acumen to where I can take these fractions and convert them into decimals or whatever I needed to, figure out the walls, the concrete that you need, and lay this out so other people can build off of it. All this geometry and stuff like that goes into doing carpentry, I actually thought I was really stupid at when I was in school. But once I got out into the field using it, I understood the algebra, the geometry, the calculus. That was all easy. I could do it all in my head because I'm visual. I can do it all in my head. I can figure it out. So that's what you end up doing a lot in the field, even minute measurements to really big measurements. It's all, volumes, cube formulas, all that stuff. It's easy to me now, but at the time it was like, oh crap, I didn't know I got this that easily. But a lot of people don't. They'll stay away from doing blueprints, anything that can get them to losing their job. If they do it wrong, they'll stay way away from it. But
Yeah.
some people either dumb or just don't care. Me, being black, like I was taught, which was learn it all. Don't be afraid of doing any of it. Learn it all. It keeps you on the job longer.
Well,
So
I think this is important because that's an application for math. You're in K through 12 learning fractions and decimals, and you don't necessarily make the connection between this is going into the building of a house,
right,
or the proper building of a house. So I think for those from the education community listening to this or watching this, that's a huge connection there between what Artisan is doing and what he has to do, and those basic math concepts that we learn in K through 12. That's
right.
huge. Yeah. And I think the other thing is people listening to this need to understand that this is a big job. I mean, you're talking about building structures that people are living in,
yep,
and that people are going to live in. So if he doesn't do his job correctly, that can have long-term ramifications, just like the building of a bridge, or creating something incorrectly.
Yeah, I would say for the carpenters who really care about their craft and take it as a craft and as a responsibility, you'll see that in them. They will really care about what's going to be left behind and that people will live, work in this place. Some people just see it as just a job and will treat it with not the degree of professionalism they should, where they won't care how it's put together, long as it's put together when they leave, and they can't see it after they leave. But people who take it as a profession, which it is, it's a career and a profession, because you have to get better at this stuff. You're learning on this process, and the techniques of building don't stop. You're supposed to keep improving those skills and stuff like that.
Okay. So I want to make the best use of this time, but I'm thinking about, out in California, you guys have those fires. I was watching a documentary on that one time, and one of those fires started because a gas company, they didn't weld that pipe shut, and then this one day, the thing blew up, and the whole neighborhood blew up, and the forest fire started. So this is important. This is huge.
Yeah,
that things are done correctly. Things are put together correctly and built correctly.
Right. And I would say, at least on something like that, that would come down to welding, which you do learn as a carpenter. You do learn how to do. That come down to an improper weld, that somebody was not inspecting that weld, and it wasn't a good bond.
Yeah. Well, in some instances, companies are making economic decisions, and they're trying to cut corners in some instances. So I think that's where that problem stemmed from.
Yeah. Go ahead. I would just say on that part is that one of the things you have to understand about carpentry, or at least construction in general, is that usually the lowest bidder wins. And what that means is that it may have been 3 or 4 different people bidding on this job, and say the final price tag on the job was $40 million, and everybody else bidded on it. Some people came in over, some people came below. The person who came below is the one who got the job. The person who came below may have forgotten something, because that's what you think about when you win that bid. What did we forget that everybody else remembered? And then they have to actually make up for that in some kind of way. They have to offset that, what they forgot, because eventually they'll come to it. And now there's where you're stuck in this place to where you have to cut some corners on something. Something doesn't get bought to this degree that you thought it was. And it might be a dirty secret in construction in some senses, but that's what happens. You go with the cheapest bidder, and the cheapest bidder usually will try to go with the cheapest stuff, even though they may have bidded you up on something more expensive. You cut corners, and this is how it shows at times. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question, then I'm going to squeeze in Ray's question after that.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of being a journeyman, when I think about that, I think of someone who's moving around, traveling from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the significance of what that means, being a journeyman carpenter?
So, significance of being a journeyman carpenter is that you can work anywhere in this country. You can work anywhere in this country or in the world, pretty much, even as an apprentice. But this is where I'm blessed in the sense that I became a journeyman in California, because our building standards and our building code, which you do have to learn, is so strict. We build to a different tolerance here than, say, in Atlanta or something like that. So as a journeyman, you can move. You can move anywhere and get a job anywhere. Within the last year, I looked up, journeyman wages in North Carolina and what was going on in North Carolina, because I heard they were building a lot, just to see what it was. Now, because I'm a journeyman in California, I've been trained this way in the union. The union is far-reaching. The union is nationwide. In some senses, worldwide. So I could move primarily to, let's just say, I can move to North Carolina and get a job with the union as a journeyman carpenter, and they can get my record from California in my union hall and have them send it over. They can see what kind of jobs I've been on, what work I've done, and what companies I've worked for. And I could go to work commanding that wage in that area. And that was one of the benefits to me as a 20-year-old man finally getting to journeyman status, because I could move. I could move somewhere and still make somewhat the same amount of money I was making. Just depends on their area. But that was the thing, because the skills go with you. You are your skills. You are your skills and your tools. And as long as you got your tools and a pair of hands, you can do your job, and you can go anywhere with that, because it's not something that is readily lost, like, a white collar job. Like, you lose your job, all of a sudden you don't have a desk to sit at, no papers to push anymore. No, you have your skills. You can always take them and work for yourself, or you can work for somebody else, because you have learned those skills. So,
okay,
traditional
movement. Okay, so you have the flexibility to move around the country, basically.
You do, yes.
Okay. Ray Alexander says, could you discuss the types of advanced tech tools used in modern carpentry?
Modern carpentry is this is one of the things that me and BGS talk about a lot. One of the things is the whole 3D printer technology. And one of the people that I've tried to turn other, or at least subs that I have that I talk about this stuff with, which is Belinda Carr, who is a architect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's not the co-workers texting me. 3D printing is a thing for building concrete houses, right? That's another form of technology where they figure out ways to use this technology to impact the building process to where you don't have to use as many people, but you can do it quicker and cheaper. One of the things that's a problem in construction is the waste, and so you find ways of re-engineering material or reusing material so there's not so much waste. One of those ways of technology is think about your MDF, which most people may not know what that means, so medium density fiberboard. That's pretty much what a lot of your cabinets and furniture is built out of right now. Some of your
Artisan, you're breaking up just a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was moving around.
Okay, you're back. Okay, there you go.
Sorry about that. I was probably moving around. What part did you hear last?
I heard cabinets.
Okay. So what I was saying is that most of us know what MDF. If you go to Home Depot and look at your wood and stuff like that, and you'll find a piece of wood that's a bunch of pieces laid on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example of technology in construction work where they're figuring out a way to use all these leftover pieces, glue them together, use a computer to figure out how to lay them so they get strength out of it and turn them back into a piece of material that you can still use again. It actually has a stronger yield than just a regular, saw cut piece of material from a tree. That's one way technology is used. Another way is in tools, the tools that you use. Power actuated set gun is a tool and works in ways. The other innovations that I've seen is even having your cell phone and having a what is it? I think it's like a 3D or infrared read on your phone where you can see the wires and stuff like that inside your drywall, which takes the place of using a stud finder or the old-fashioned nail in the wall method to find the studs in your wall, so you're not drilling or hitting electrical conduit or wires or anything like that in your wall. So there's a lot of tech that comes into it. A lot of it is built by people who work in the trade and want to figure out a way to do their work a lot easier. But there's a lot of tech in the trade. Don't be mistaken. Outside of, I haven't even mentioned the AutoCAD or the blueprinting or 3D modeling of buildings and all the structural stuff. There's a lot of it in there, especially on the engineering side of it. In the trade side, not a lot
Okay.
yet. Put it that way.
I want to thank Yigami for the $5 super chat. He says to Artisan FC. Could you describe a type of building you / colleagues participate in? 2, time span until journeyman. 3, if someone goes into engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first question, could I describe types of buildings you or your colleagues participated in? Okay, last building that I worked on, I don't even want to use that one because that one was kind of shitty, but it was a 42-story apartment complex in downtown Oakland. Okay. And I wasn't doing much carpentry on that job. That's why I don't want to use it. Last one I was actually involved with doing a lot of carpentry was pretty much call it a tabletop. It was an apartment building, but the bottom section was commercial space. So basically how they did it, everything below was concrete. So it was concrete form work being made out of wood. And concrete is pretty pliable. And if you put it in between 2 sets of wood in some form or fashion, it will mold to whatever shape you put it in. So a lot of concrete form work is done that way to build these buildings, because once you put it into that shape, let it harden over a day, it's good. You can build on top of it once it gets up to strength. All right. So the building we did was about a block long, and bottom section was all parking, commercial, and then above it, on top of that slab, which is called a tabletop, they did wood framing to build the rest of the housing development up. The rest of the apartments were done in wood. Now that's commonly out here, they do that a lot now. They'll have a commercial space and then residential on top of it. It's fairly common. To me, it looks kind of ugly while it's being built, but that's a way of lessening the price on it because they're just using lumber or metal studs to build the rest of the building. Number 2, time span until journeyman. Depends on where you are. My program in California in the Bay Area was 4 years. 4 years and so many hours. So if it took you longer than 4 years, if you were missing your classes like some apprentices will do, you're missing your classes, you're not passing your classes, it will take you a lot longer. I was in a 4-year program. I finished in 3.5. I finished early because I was getting my hours in and I wasn't missing any classes. I didn't want it to take any more time. So I actually turned out early, turned out in 99 instead of 2000 and something. But all you have to do is call your United Brotherhood of Carpenters in whatever city you're in, your local carpenters union, and ask them those questions, and they'll tell you how long it is for your apprenticeship or it to be journeyman. Three, if someone got into engineering, engineering would help. You'll learn a lot of engineering if you work commercial construction. You'll learn a lot of engineering principles because a lot of the stuff you're doing is really big, from bridges to high rise buildings and stuff like that, especially if you're in a really metropolitan area. You'll get a lot of experience doing a lot of different things. If you're out in a more rural area, you're going to do a lot more residential construction, which is going to be more homes and stuff like that. There is an engineering element to it, but to me, it's better if you know how to do things big, because then you can scale them down to doing them small, than to doing them small and then trying to figure out how to scale it up to be bigger. It's just different tolerances. How you build things is a little differently, but you're still trying to understand the weight of things, the span of things, how things will settle, how they will move. All that stuff is still there. Smaller scale, but I don't know. I like doing it on a big job. That's what I like watching on TV. Hope that answered your question. But engineering is helpful. If you want to go into engineering, do it. But don't. If you go into engineering, you'll end up being in the office of a construction site more and not out in the field, swinging the hammers, doing the actual work. So if you do that, don't make the mistake of being one of those engineers that comes out in the field and disrespects the people that are working in the field because you think they are lower than you and know nothing.
Okay.
Don't do that. Yeah, don't make that mistake.
All right. So before we move on, because I have a few more,
Mm-hmm.
what does a journeyman carpenter make? Does it vary from job to job, or do you make a set amount per year? Or
if you're in the union, if you're a union carpenter, your pay is pretty much set. Now, that contract between the union and the general contractors who do the bargaining for that can go up or it can stay the same. Around here, it's usually like every 4 to 5 year contract or something like that. And when they don't reach some kind of agreement, that's when you see carpenters and tradesmen out on strike and stuff like that, because they want their wages and how they get their benefits and whatnot. Like I said, right now, I believe it's about 38. I think it's about 38.50 for a journeyman carpenter right now in the Bay Area, and that's per hour. So if you're a journeyman carpenter, you start on the job today, you're getting paid $38 an hour, and that's guaranteed to you by the union, as long as it's a union job. If it's not a union job, if you work a non-union, which happens in the Bay Area because there's a lot of contractors out here, it's competitive, you may not get that off the bat. You may get somewhere around 30 or 20, depends on how big the general contractor is and how they are working their pay structure. Because you're non-union, you're not protected like that. You may be on a prevailing wage job or what they can afford, in a sense. But they'll try to pay you something competitive nowadays because unfortunately, there's a lot of not good carpenters out there right now. Sorry to say.
Okay.
But it is.
Okay. My inclination is to ask you why, but I want to be cognizant of the time here.
It's okay. You're good.
Well, just briefly, why? Why are they not? That's important.
I'd say at least in the Bay Area, at least over the last 10 or 15 years or so, union got into promoting a lot of people forward and letting them pay to become journeymen, and they didn't have the skills and didn't spend the time to become journeymen. So you got inundated with a group of people who commanded that high wage, but did not have the skills to back up that wage. So when a lot of different political campaigns came through and started running those people out of the country, you ended up with a deficit of carpenters. So you have some on the job site still now, There's a lot of them, but a lot of them aren't really skilled. They're not, because they didn't start as carpenters. They started as something else and just got put into that position because
Okay.
everybody thought it was easy, or you got better money, and that's why they're there. Those are the ones that it's a job. It's not a trade or a
Not a
skill.
craft.
It's not a
Okay.
craft for them.
So, in terms of certification, do you guys have to get recertified every couple of years, or do you have to get retrained, or once you get it, you get it?
No, once you get it as a journeyman. There's different certifications you can go for. So, like, if you want to be certified as a welder, you will have to recertify every couple of years. If you're certified to run different equipment, you will have to get certified by their time frames, however many years, maybe it's like 2 or 3 years, you have to get recertified. But you do not have to get recertified to be a journeyman carpenter. Once you have hit that rank, you are that rank. That's just what it is. So what has happened in recent times, especially in the Bay Area, where you've had different companies come in and try to eat off the union side to where they will operate companies that work like temp agencies for tradesmen. They may want you to certify with them if you get a job for them. They may want you to certify to prove that you know what you know. If you say, "Hey, I'm a journeyman carpenter," they may say, "Well, can you do such and such?" They may want you to certify with them, but they are not union. They're not working through the union. They're just a stopgap in the way of tearing down a union membership, in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. I have a few more here.
Mhm.
When I was looking for pictures for this stream, for this background, for the thumbnail, I didn't see a lot of most of the people in the pictures didn't look like us. And I was
No.
and I was wondering, especially now with the immigration aspect, what's happening there in terms of the ethnic makeup? Is it becoming inundated with certain people, or is it?
It is.
Or what are you seeing there?
It is inundated with certain people, and I will say, what I learned as when I got in as an apprentice. When I got in as an apprentice back in '97, the trade was full of brothers, black men and women doing this job. And the part of the trade that I was in, which was commercial work in San Francisco, because we were doing commercial concrete work, that was considered at that time, which was told to me by my journeyman, um, not to be too crude, but it was considered nigger work. That it was dirty, it was nasty, you worked in crappy weather, it was heavy work because you're always working with 4x6s, 4x8s, 12-foot long lengths. It was nasty, crappy work in the worst type of weather and the worst conditions. And there was a lot of black people doing that work. And this was told to me by my journeyman, who had started back in the '80s when it was primarily white boys who did it, but then they got out of it because they didn't want to do that part anymore. They want to be indoors, out of the rain and out of the, bad weather. So it was a lot of black folks in it. By the time I got up to 2008 and the whole economy, kind of the bubble burst on building houses and stuff like that, I left for a time and came back. It completely switched up. All of the more black folks had pretty much been driven out of that field. They were all either looking for jobs doing it themselves or got into other things, but they were gone, and the new influx were Latinos. Now, when I started in '97, from '97 until about 2008, you may have had one or two Latinos on a job, but it wasn't a lot of them. Now, when I came back in 2008, it was still kind of split. You had more Latinos, but it was still a lot of brothers and sisters working in this trade, doing this work, getting this respect. But there was a lot more Latinos there. Start seeing the advent of a lot more Latino foremen and stuff like that, because they had to communicate with the other Latino staff that was there because they didn't speak English, which I will tell you most of the time is a dang lie. They do speak English. They just use that as to get more of them onto the job site in one time. One will pretend like he doesn't speak English, so you have to hire them both instead of hiring just the one of them. And that usually pushed brothers out, because I've said this, not to, get real rude with it, but what I've learned in the trade, that it's only two things. One thing that Caucasians and Latinos agree on is that they don't like black folks. So they would routinely get hired on over black people when you may have only needed one person, but you didn't want to give it to that black guy because you didn't know him, but you would hire those two Latino guys to get on because one has to speak to the other one. And they work harder. They also did a lot of stuff under the table that worked against the union, which is taking less money than you're supposed to be taking, or doing work that you're not supposed to be doing, like laborers filling in for carpenters and jobs using laborers in lieu of carpenters, so they pay in less money to get somebody else to do the same work. And that's how they got a foothold. So after 2008, I left again for a short time and came back. And when I came back, these last two times, it's all Latinos. The job that I was telling you about, that was in Millbrae, which was the tabletop apartment building. There's about 200 people on that job, and I was the only brother, the only one. And that was a stark contrast from where I started in 97, where every job I went to was full of black people, every one, in the same vicinity. And then after that time, every job I went to was all Latinos. There's very few brothers, and very few brothers who were carpenters.
Okay. So tying this all together, is it that they're a cheap labor force? Are there fewer of us going into those areas, or are there folks going into those areas and they can't get hired because of this new labor force?
I think it's multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
I will not say it's not a lot of us trying to get into this trade. I won't say that, because a lot of the brothers that I worked with after I turned journeyman were young cats. They were young cats getting into it. And it's known, at least in my area, that carpentry is a job that you can make some really decent money at. You can make an easy $50K a year just doing it. You'll make more than that, but that's easy. That's like a minimum. If you just show up every day and do 8 hours, you can do that all year. You can make that. That's nothing. You'll usually make a lot more than that, because there can be a lot of overtime depending on the job that you're on. And even though it may not be on your hourly wage, your benefits and your retirement, your 401k is what you care about. And that stuff is getting socked in there every week. Every week is getting thrown in there. So it can add up. But what I've noticed with the how the union moved at one point, where they started favoring the Latino workers, and they start bringing them in to bolster their numbers in the union. When a lot of people start retiring out, and a lot of the older guys start retiring out, and that's when they start hurting themselves, which is they went to the laborers unions and started offering these guys journeyman positions just because they had been on the job site for maybe 5 or 10 years, and started letting them come in as carpenters by just buying their journeyman card instead of doing the work and the training and learning the craft to become a journeyman. They let them buy it and just get in. So that pretty much oversaturated the trade and drove them out. And once there were people in positions of authority on those jobs, foremen who were bilingual and stuff like that, they do what usual cultural ties make people do. They force out everybody else that's not them. So now brothers can't get on. There were some other things that changed with the rules on getting jobs and stuff like that, but that's all it did. It pretty much worked to keep certain people in charge of who got onto a job site, and they didn't want brothers, so they wouldn't hire them very often. So that's
Okay.
why I ended up being one of few or the only one on different job sites. And that was only
Okay.
because I had been there long enough that I knew other people above them that would give me a job.
Okay. So one of my questions had to do with getting business training as well. Do any workers uh, try to go into business for themselves to hire you know their own the workforce they want to hire? Does anyone learn their carpentry skills and then get their MBA or whatever to go with it? And have you seen any of that?
Some, some do. And I think this is where us as black people fall down on it a lot of the time. Um, my mentor, the one who got me into the trade, Ron had actually gone to school for construction and construction management.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of just learning the in the field part, he did all the college learning part of it too, that would put you in the office. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
you've ever worked on the construction site, you know who so-called the white caps are, and those are the people who work in the office. And the people who work in the office are usually young. They're usually young, Caucasians, Latinos, whoever, right? These are the people who are going through the college end of the construction trade. They're learning that construction management part, or that engineering part, or the architectural part. And that's why they end up having a job with the company in the office and not just in the field as the hired hands that they have working for this company that will be gone when the company pulls up stakes and leaves. Because I've always used the analogy of um, construction job or general contractor as being a carnival. They roll into town, they set up their tent, they hire local staff, they put on a show for a little while, and then they pull up stakes and leave. And the people that they hire from that area stay in that area, but they're gone. Not a lot of them get to stay. And that's usually how it is, at least in my area, working for different contractors. That's how it is. The
So the
only people
company
that
is
don't change, I'm sorry, is the people who actually work for the company.
okay. So that's important because so they're companies, construction companies, and they come to your city and they hire the tradesmen,
Mhm.
right? For a specified amount of time
Yep.
and compensation. Okay, that's how that
Mhm.
works.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. One of the companies I worked for was a international company. They had a bunch of jobs. And my superintendent had just come from, even though we were working in San Francisco and they were doing this job in San Francisco, my superintendent had just come from like Malaysia or something like that, some job that they were doing there. Now, when that company finished in San Francisco, that superintendent and the rest of the supers went to wherever their next job was. All those people that were working for them at that 5 years or so that they were there in San Francisco, still in San Francisco. Maybe some of them got hired on with the company to go with them, but they're still in San Francisco. Because what they'll do is they hire through the union halls the labor in that area. And it's the union hall's responsibility to provide skilled workers for the general contractors that come there like that, especially the big ones. It's their job to provide them with skilled labor to do these jobs. That's how it works. So,
Okay, interesting. So
yeah,
the company just wants workers,
the company does
and
workers.
so who's in that workforce that gets determined at the union level then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
I'm
your
just
union.
piecing all this together
Yeah.
in my mind for the audience.
All right.
Okay, so to change the composition of that workforce, that's all at the union level.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Composition of that workforce is at the union level in the area that you're in. Um, so if you're doing something in a affluent area and their local union hall is in an affluent area, you may get a lot more affluent people there. who are into the trades. It may look homogenous like one thing or another. If you're in a more depressed area, like downtown Oakland, you may get a little bit more brothers there out the local union hall. But it also depends on which union hall has jurisdiction over that area and which union hall that general contractor calls for workers. Because when I got closer into being in the office and I saw how they make these decisions, they will make those decisions based on who they get out of which union halls. They'll make those decisions at that level. Like, I don't want people from over there because they never know anything, or it's just a bunch of, they might be trouble kind of situation. We'll pull from this union hall instead. But that's why you get
union hall is like. So I'm thinking about the Mandalorian. The union hall is like the guild.
Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is.
All right.
That's part of the union's history, is like a guild. It is specifically like a guild because guilds operate on a set of skills, right? So if you can very easily say the Carpenters Union is the Carpenters Guild or the Builders Guild. That's what it is. Gotcha. The Builders Guild, and they do this stuff. Well, you have the Plumbers Guild, the Piping Guild that does this stuff. It's very grasped very easily. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Artisan, we already talked about salary ranges and the time investment for your training. So I'm going to skip to number 8.
Okay.
In general, what are the qualities, and I think you've mentioned some of this already, what are the qualities and attributes individuals need to become trained and excel in fields like carpentry?
Good question, because nobody's actually asked me that one before.
Okay.
Even though I said that it involves some math,
and
it's easy for me, I would say don't let that shy you away from it. Definitely some math skills and some basic math skills are important. But to me, what makes a good carpenter is somebody who wants to do professional good work, that you have that work ethic, that you want to see something done and want to see something done right, correct, that you would be proud of somebody looking at and saying, yeah, I did that. Okay. Be able to conceptualize how things come together. Like if you like doing puzzles or pulling things apart, have that mechanical inclination, that would work. Definitely have some skills with being able to manipulate your hands and how to manipulate tools. And you would think it doesn't apply, but have some abstract reasoning on how to solve certain problems. Because a lot of times, just like today, when I was doing the work that I was doing today, it's troubleshooting and figuring out how to solve a problem in non-traditional situations, non-ideal situations, and with non-traditional tools. It's a lot of troubleshooting most of the time. So, in that, not being afraid to get your hands dirty and like being in there doing something and willing to jump in and work with anybody and do it. And I've said this many a times, being a carpenter, especially out on a commercial job site, will teach you how to stand up for yourself and teach you how to speak to people older than you, younger than you, of your ethnicity, not of your ethnicity, different skill levels or whatever. And you have to learn how to talk to those people and communicate with those people in some form or fashion to get the job that you're doing done. So you have to learn how to work with a lot of different people, regardless of the political affiliations, liking them, don't like them. None of that stuff actually matters. You're not there to like them. It's a benefit, but you're not there for that. But being able to get in there and work with people and pull together on any task and do a task in a time frame, not just wasting your day away, but actually focusing on something and getting it done to a high degree of accuracy, humanly possible, in a time frame, is important. because you're always on the clock. You're always on a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always trying to make sure you're getting stuff done. So all that comes together, and just liking to build. I think that's primary. Like, I'll see this in kids a lot, and people say, "Oh, they just keep tearing up stuff." It's like, don't stomp that out. That's that fire in him that'll turn him into an architect or an engineer, because he likes to put things together or build stuff. That's something that's snuffed out of kids. That's part of your imagination. So,
Well, also when it's decided, college is the thing. You're going to
mm,
college. College is the only way. Well, we all have gifts and talents,
mm,
and some people are gifted and talented with what you said. Working with your hands and problem solving and putting things together and breaking things apart. Some people are skilled in that. They're not skilled. They're
mm.
not destined to go sit in a classroom, for four years and six years. And so that's interesting that you said that.
Yeah, I've actually done both. I've done my time as a carpenter working with my hands, and I spent my years in college getting my degree. I don't believe, me personally, I don't believe in just one over the other. Doing both if you can. You
Okay.
just may not do them both at the same time, but that'd be crazy. It's easier to do when you don't have kids, but do both.
Do both.
Do both. Go towards your passions and what your attributes are. My ideal is to self actualize and actually find out what my limits are and how far I can go with whatever I'm doing. So for me, I did carpentry. I did it at a very high degree and very well. Anybody that worked with me really recognized that I was really good at this and wanted me to do it. I got a job just working another job and seeing a guy I used to work with, like, "Oh, I'll hire him right now. Come on, I need you on my job," because he knew my level of work and how much skill I brought to it. That makes me feel good, but I can also drive a city skyline in San Francisco and point out which buildings that I worked on and tell you exactly what I did on those buildings that are still standing there. That's a good feeling to me. But at the same time, I still went back to school and got that other part of me that I wanted, which is the intellectual side of getting that stuff together. So do both. It's all about you and trying to, make yourself the best person that you can and learn the things you want to learn. I just don't. But carpentry was a job that came up for me to take care of my son, so I did it. I had an aptitude for it, but I also had an aptitude for scholastic work as well. I did that
So
too.
before we close out, what
Mhm.
did you what did you study when you went to scholastic
Psychology.
psychology? Okay.
Psychology. Yeah, psychology. I was always into science and the sciences, as I've made the joke, which is not actually a joke, it was serious. I've said many times that I wanted to be Buckaroo Banzai because that was one of the first times I saw somebody, although it's a fictional character, one of the few times that I saw somebody who said they did all of these things, not just a doctor, not just a surgeon, not just a musician, not just a scientist. They did everything they wanted to do, and I thought that was really novel approach. That was like the first time I thought you didn't have to just pick one. I thought you were just supposed to pick one and stick with that. No, you can do all of this if you spend the time to learn to do it. So I learned psychology,
Okay.
or at least enough. I haven't got to your level yet. That's one of those end goals. I got 2 more years on that goal. So
Well, Artisan, what's funny is that as a man, even when you go to get your white collar training, whether you be a lawyer or a doctor, you're still expected to know how to do some things around. He's smiling. And if you can't,
doesn't go
if
away.
you can't, if you can't wield some tools and you don't know how to do this and know how to do that, I can say that I changed out my toilet. I've done some other small
I
jobs.
can tell you how. I can tell you
Like
how.
what?
I said I can tell you how.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but I'm just saying that even with your white collar training, it's important to know how to fix things and troubleshoot things and even put
Mhm.
things together. And
Right.
so your white collar training is not the be all and end all. It's just
No,
not.
it's not. No. And
Not.
some of it, what you'll find is doing both, because I've also worked. semi-corporate, you'll see what transfers across all of that, and what primarily transfers across every one of those fields, be it white collar, blue collar, retail, whatever the hell, you know, it's actually learning how to deal with people and the professionalism you bring to the job that you do. Like they say, your attitude denotes your altitude, right? The attitude you bring to any one of those jobs and your work ethic to any one of those jobs is what's pretty much going to see you through most of the time, and how you deal with the people at any one of them. There's nothing in carpentry that I've done, except for the jobs I kind of did by myself when I self-contracted, that didn't rely on me actually working with other people and being able to communicate with them in some kind of form or fashion in a positive way, that we could actually work together on something and get something done. It was the same thing in college. It was the same thing in, corporate world. It's the same shit. You always have to work with people. So you always have to be able to move and adjust to the situation and bring the skills that you have to bear in the situation. So, please like the stream. Yeah, like the stream. Donate to the doctor.
Yeah. Everyone, my let's see, my Cash App, the Super Chat is live. We're just about done here, but my Cash App and PayPal are there.
Yes.
I think that's pretty much all I got. Artisan, is there anything else? I have one question here.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else people generally don't understand about, carpentry or working in the blue collar trades? Is there any other misconceptions about it?
Yeah, I would say
it sounds like you mentioned the math earlier. It sounds like there is a. I think people think about swinging hammers and getting dirty.
You do,
but there's an intellectual component to it. That's what I'm trying to say.
There is a huge intellectual component of it, and I think one of the biggest misconceptions, at least with carpentry, since most people don't understand what a carpenter actually does. They just see the guy with the work boots on and the dirty pants and the big, burly, filthy hands, and maybe he got a tool belt on, maybe he doesn't. Maybe they may think he looks slovenly or something. Most of the carpenters that I know are highly intelligent people. Highly intelligent. They're not a bunch of dummies. There are dummies out there, but there's dummies in everybody's field. Some of them fell upwards, right? But for what I know about people in the trades, and at least carpenters, there are some really intelligent people in this trade. Just because they work a job where they get dirty does not mean that they're actually below you. They actually understand something that you probably don't. I mean, I don't crap on people who want to get out in their backyard on the weekends and buy all the fancy and expensive tools they can and go out there and try to build something in the backyard. But I don't crap on people for the DIY stuff, but I do crap on them if they think that they're just as good as some guy coming out of a apprenticeship program, been working in this trade for 20 or so years, and has worked on a bunch of jobs. That's what I do. That's what I do have a problem with. And I will say, you mentioned it before, the DIY shows and stuff like that. One of the most irritating experiences I've had was when I was self-contracting, and somebody hired me for a job. I'm doing a job, and they want to match up how I'm doing the job to what they saw on TV. That's an insult. More so even calling them, mistaking a carpenter for a handyman. That's an insult. That's a freaking insult. Because of the amount of time that we spend to learn this craft from all our teachers that we've had, for every journeyman that I've worked with, for every job that I've been on, the number of hours and crappy days that I spent soaking wet, hitting my fingers, thumbs, in tight spots that I didn't want to be, learning how to do this work, to reduce it down to, oh, you're a handyman. No. Okay. And yeah, they're not usually really dumb people. If you talk to some of them, you will find some of these people are highly intelligent. This is just what they like to do. This is what really gets them out of the bed in the morning to be able to go and do this job where at the end of an 8-hour day, they can see what they've been working on. They can actually look back and, have that feeling of accomplishment. It's like, yeah, okay, this is what we did today. I can actually tangibly see what we did today. I'm actually building something. And this will come together. And it'll be here long after I'm dead. So that part. A little bit more respect outside of they just make a bunch of money. That's part of it. But it's not usually why they do it.
Okay. And for clarity, DIY stands for do it yourself. Yeah.
Do it yourselfers. Yeah. Do it yourselfers. Okay. So yeah. I don't have any hate for them, but look, just because you can put a screw in and you got the fancy tools, don't I'll make you a carpenter. Yeah. It's cool.
All right. Well, Artisan, that's all I've got. Do you have anything else to say before we wrap up?
I would say support your trade, support your unions. Your job rules and your labor rules that you have are due to union representation. It's due to unions that you have those rules. So support your unions. And if you have some young Black men who don't really have a direction right now in life and are looking for a job, call your local, United Brotherhood of Carpenters, a trade or whatever, and try to get him into that, because that will at least provide him a way and some functioning to get him around some other males that will help direct him. One of the best experiences I've had in my life that have been really helpful for me was getting into carpentry, because I had a group of older Black men around me, my forefathers, as I call them, in the trade, who really helped me, not just with learning my trade, but learning a lot about life and learning a lot about just living and becoming a man. So shout out to Ron Hamilton, Johnny Howe, Nelson Stallworth, and Kenny Massengill, my forefathers in the trade. Good brothers to this day. So that's it. And thank you to Mr. AYD for bringing me up. Thank you to Dr. Anwar for actually having me come up.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I think that it's important to get exposure for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I've said this on this channel that, and the image guy has said it too, that we can't do what we do without the blue collar tradesmen. We can't sit here on YouTube. We can't work remotely. We can't. Nope. Even when we go in the office, we can't do what we need to do without the blue collar tradesmen. Exactly. So, there are viable livelihoods and careers over there that I think people are overlooking. I know that in my family, it was strictly college. It wasn't, don't think about anything else. It was just college. But those are valuable skills to have.
Yeah. So. No, my mother's view was just get out of her house.
You get that too. Yeah, you get
so too. You got the college thing, yes, but it's just like whatever's gonna get you out of here. So,
yeah.
I did.
Hey, I want to shout out Art of Ibmore. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for stopping through.
A shout out to Art of Ibmore.
Yeah, we are winding down here. So I need to eat something. It's late here.
Me too. That's why I was late. I was deciding if I was going to sit in my car and do this in front of my taqueria or come home and do it. So I decided to come home. So we get off here, go see my favorite taqueria.
Okay. Giagami says, doing good. The stream is very informative for ADOS men and others, professional prospects. Yes. Ibmore and MLR says, good stream. Salute to Artisan, MC, and Dr. Dunbar for the stream. Okay, well, Artisan.
Carpentry is a profession. Remember that. Carpentry is a profession. It's not a job.
It's not a job. It's a profession.
Be a professional.
Okay. Well, we definitely have to do this again sometime. I'm sure I'll think of more questions after we finish.
Sure.
But thank you for now. And I'm gonna put something in the private chat right now
Okay.
before we stop.
What did somebody say about entrepreneurship? Yeah. Once you got the skills, you can do your entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just asked you a question in the private chat. You could leave it there, or you can email it to me when we
Yeah, I'm
end.
not worried about it. That's all
You
you,
sure?
man. Yeah.
All right. I like to
But
I told everyone on this channel I did work with the image guy once, and one
Mhm.
of the things he did stress to us was generosity. So whenever someone comes on, I at least like to offer. So
Yeah, I usually do too. And now that I see yours is on there, I'll make sure I get it down. 1 second, because I was meaning to do that, but we were talking and having a discussion, so I wasn't looking away. Part. So before we go, let me get that off of there.
okay.
Because I do believe in that. Because the image guy was right. We do need to support each other as much as we can. Keep that circulating.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
you don't have to worry
everyone,
about that.
say what?
I said, so I'm good. You're fine.
Okay. All
Technology.
right. All right. Well, and is your channel named Artisan MC?
Yes, it is. My channel name is Artisan MC. I do a weekly live stream every Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Pacific time, every 11 a.m. And then I'll drop sporadic videos during the week, reviews of television shows, geek culture related stuff, because I like to have
Okay.
fun.
All right. Well, all right, everyone, we're gonna shut this down. So, if you're watching on the playback, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal will be in the description box below. And I think that's it. So, everyone, enjoy the rest of your night. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and we will talk to you the next time. Bye bye.
Appreciate that.
All right.
Peace.
And this.